Surah al-Kahf, verses 83 to 98. This surah is called Surah al-Kahf. Al-Kahf means the cave. So what comes to your mind when you imagine a cave? Darkness. Okay, maybe isolation. Okay, maybe mountain. What else? Something that's unknown, right? Unexplored. What is within a cave would typically be taken as being hidden, right? Away from the mainstream population. The name of a surah has a deep connection with the surah itself. So in this surah, we find mention of many incidents from which we can extract many lessons. However, there is one common lesson that all of these stories teach us, and that is Iman bil Ghaib, belief in the unseen. Because what is unseen? That which is hidden from us, what we cannot see, that which is unknown. We don't have knowledge of it except for what it is that Allah has told us through wahi. Right? When you think about the story of Ashabul Kahf, when these young men, they found it difficult to remain firm in terms of their deen, their iman, in the land that they were dwelling in, what did they do? They retreated to the cave. So, what do we learn from this? If a person has to leave everything and retreat to a cave because Allah has commanded him to do so, then he should not fear and he should enter. Because he's obeying the command of Allah. And as a result, Allah will spread His mercy for him. What did Ashabul Kahf decide to do? فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنْشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَيُهَيِّئْ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ مِرْفَقًا. And this can only be done when a person believes in Allah, trusts Him, believes in the unseen. And what is the first quality of the muttaqeen that is mentioned in the Qur'an? الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Those who believe in the unseen. And that includes believing in divine decree. Okay. And then we learn from the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khadir. The actions of Khadir apparently seemed difficult to understand. But the reality, the hidden wisdoms were completely different. And also from this incident, we learn that the prophets don't have complete knowledge of the unseen. Similarly, the story of Dhul Qarnayn also has mention of some matters related to matters of the unseen, such as the reality of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, who are mentioned in these verses. And Ya'juj and Ma'juj are from the descendants of Adam alayhi salam, human beings. And they will appear, meaning they will become manifest near the Day of Judgment. But they are in existence today from behind a wall. Okay? Meaning they do exist, but they've been placed behind a wall. Now, where is that wall? When will it open? Allah knows best. Our responsibility is to believe in the unseen. Because there are some people who say that if they are upon the earth now, meaning Ya'juj and Ma'juj are there, if they are upon the earth, why can we not see them in this age of technology? Because people claim we have unearthed every single corner of the world, of the globe. Through satellites, we can, see everything. Even this is a misunderstanding. People have not actually discovered everything. We're still discovering new species when it comes to the animal kingdom. And in fact, certain tribes, certain human beings living in, far off places in the world, like even within the depths of the Amazon rainforest, people being discovered, tribes being discovered. So the truth of the matter is that we as human beings have not really unearthed everything. And regardless of this, we need to bring Iman on the unseen, no matter what people say. And then there are also people who misinterpret the verses about Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Now, as far as what is really going to happen, when it comes to them becoming apparent, manifest, when the time comes for them to appear, they will appear. Okay? And their exact harmness is going to be discovered. Now, why is this being mentioned at this stage, the mention of Ya'juj and Ma'juj? So that when you go through these verses pertaining to Dhul Qarnayn, you don't allow doubts to cross your minds. That how can this ever happen? And if there is a doubt, remind yourself that Allah has said this, so it is how it is. Believe in it. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. What has been said about this book, the Qur'an, there is no doubt about it. Everything in the Qur'an is factual. So the last of the 4 stories mentioned in Surah al-Kahf is the story of Dhul Qarnayn. And in this there is mention of tests that come through power and authority. Commonly it is said that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Meaning when human beings acquire a lot of authority, many times they become very, very corrupt. And this is what also leads to a lot of power struggles in this dunya. This is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed us to not seek authority. Okay. We learn that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Abdurrahman ibn Samurah, he reports, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to me, O Abdurrahman, do not ask for authority. If it is given to you at your request, you will be held fully responsible for it. If it is given to you without your request, you will be helped by Allah in it. So Ibn Hajar, he said, the meaning of this tradition is that whoever seeks authority and is given it will forfeit his support from Allah due to his desire. Another benefit in it is that seeking the mandate to judge is discouraged, including authority, judiciary, enforcement, and so on, as whoever desires them will not be helped by Allah. And of course, a just ruler is an exception and not the norm. So here Allah mentions, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ, and they ask you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about Dhul Qarnayn. قُلْ سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْهُ ذِكْرًا, say, I will recite to you about him a report, meaning an account. They ask you, they meaning Ahlul Makkah, the people of Makkah, because of what the Jews advised them to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the term yas'aluna from the term su'al, which means to question or inquire, from Sin Hamza Lam. Now, when it comes to questioning can be done for a variety of reasons. One is to find out more information. So you can ask a question for the purpose of what? Asking or inquiring about more information. Another kind of su'al or questioning is to test someone. And a third kind of su'al is for objection. Here in this case, the people of Makkah asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about Dhul Qarnayn to test his truthfulness, to test the truthfulness of the prophethood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They ask you about Dhul Qarnayn. So you here referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they referring to the people of Makkah. Now, Dhul Qarnayn was the title of a person, a king. In the literal sense, it means possessor of two horns. Qarnayn is the dual of qarn. Qaf ra nun qarn. And the term qarn can be used in the meaning of a horn, or the peak of something, or the edge of something, or a generation, or a century. So, Dhil Qarnayn literally means possessor of two horns, or two peaks, or two ages, or two generations. And so this title is figurative, and there are a number of suggestions about his identification. One of them is that Dhil Qarnayn was actually Alexander the Great of Macedonia. However, scholars have asserted that Dhul Qarnayn cannot be Alexander the Great because Alexander was not monotheistic. He was pagan. In fact, he was tutored by Aristotle. While we learn that Dhul Qarnayn was a just believing ruler, monotheistic. Okay, so we cannot take this opinion. And in fact, Dhul Qarnayn, who is mentioned in the Qur'an, is not Alexander of Macedonia. Who built Alexandria. That Alexander was the one who died at the age of 33, as mentioned in the Christian books. And in fact, he lived about 323 years before the birth of Isa alayhi salam. So it is said that Dhul Qarnayn, who is mentioned in the Quran, lived at the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam. It is also said that he became Muslim at the hands of Ibrahim alayhi salam. It is also said he went on pilgrimage to the Kaaba. So the scholars differed concerning him as to whether he was a prophet or a righteous slave and just king. But they do agree that he was a Muslim, a monotheist, and one who was very obedient to Allah. Another view about him is that he was a Persian king who conquered Rome as well. And so he had both empires under him, the Persian and the Roman. When Bukht Nasr, the Roman king, destroyed Jerusalem, burnt the religious scriptures, and took the Bani Israel as captives, one of the captives was Daniel, who was a messenger sent to the Bani Israel. And he was shown in a dream that the two-horned one would conquer Babylon and free the Bani Israel. And this is what happened. Dhul Qarnayn conquered Babylon and freed the Bani Israel and returned them to their land. And so, because he had two superpowers under his control, Qarnayn would mean the East and the West. The Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. Nonetheless, Dhul Qarnayn was a possessor of a vast kingdom from the east to the west. So he reached the two horns of the sun, meaning the east and the west, where it rises and where it sets. And he traveled across the globe, across the world. Also, Dhil Qarnayn, meaning the one who is a possessor of great strength and might. It is said he wore some kind of a crown or a helmet, which actually had two horns on it. And the horn of an animal is considered to be a sign of power and strength. So figuratively also, he was a possessor of strength. Also, it is said that he had two partings in his hair, like braids. And each parting or braid is called qarn. And also we know that prehistoric Europeans of the 12th century BC are found to have horned helmets. Nonetheless, Dhil Qarnayn is a title, right? And so it is figurative. It indicates the vastness of the empire that this man controlled. The East and the West, both were under his control. He had a lot of power and kingdom, but he was a very righteous slave of Allah. So the majority opinion, and the opinion of Abdullah ibn Abbas regarding him, is that he was rajulun salih. He was a righteous man. And that is the safest opinion. Qul, say to those who have asked you, Sa'atlu alaykum minhu dhikra, I will recite to you about him a report. The term Sa'atlu from Taleem waw, tilawa, means to read out loudly. It's used for recitation of a revealed scripture. Say, I will recite to you, meaning I will relate to you about him, meaning some information. I will inform you about him, dhikra, a report, a reminder, an account. So meaning, from the report of Dhul Qarnayn, I will relate to you some of his information. So what do we learn from this? The entire historical account is not mentioned here in these verses. So we shouldn't be expecting that. Only some information has been mentioned. And we should be accepting of that. Why? Because whatever it is that Allah has revealed in this book, He has revealed with His wisdom. And the Qur'an is not a book of history, it's a book of guidance. Some history is included within it, that which is necessary. Inna makkanna lahu fil ard. Indeed, we established him, meaning Dhul Qarnayn, upon the earth. We gave him great power. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. And we gave him to everything away. The term makkanna from mim kaf nun. Makkana yumakkinu tamkin means to give authority or to give stability or to give settlement. The term makinna is used for a nest, which is a type of dwelling for a bird. Makin means resident. Inna makkanna lahu fil ard. Indeed, we established him upon the earth, meaning we gave him great power. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. And we gave him to everything away. Meaning he had all that he needed to accomplish his goals. And keep this within context. We gave him to everything away, meaning everything he needed in his context. Because think about it, if somebody comes to you and asks you, can I do anything for you? Do you need anything? You might not have absolutely everything that you need, but you might say to that person, no, I have everything. What does that mean? You have literally everything. It means you have everything you need. You don't really need anything more. Okay? Just like we learn in the context of the Queen of Saba. It is mentioned in Surah An-Naml, verse number 23. That Allah mentions, and she had been given min kulli shay'in, of all things. Walaha arshun azim, and she had a great throne. So in her context also, she had been given of all things. Did she literally have every single thing? No. But she had everything she needed in her kingdom. Right? So here Allah mentions in the context of Dhul Qarnayn, we established him upon the earth and we gave him to everything away. Sababa. From Sin ba. Literally, sabab means a rope that is used for something. It's used for a rope through which one goes up a tree or comes down a tree. And so sabab means cause or reason. Sabab can also be used figuratively for ilm, for knowledge. Sabab is also used for resource. So we gave him to everything away, meaning the means that he needed to acquire his goals. He had ilm, he had manpower, he had strength, he had weapons also. He had everything that he needed to strengthen his kingdom and become established on the earth. And he was given everything he needed to maintain this kingdom. And again, even in the context of the queen of Saba, وَأُوتِيَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ, and Allah mentions she had been given of all things. This doesn't imply she was given the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, but everything she needed to complete her kingdom. So Allah had given him, meaning given Dhul Qarnayn, many means. The means of power, the ability to conquer different lands. In other words, he was given everything that a man like him would need. And again, coming back to the term sababan, which is used for a rope through which one can go up a tree and come down a tree. Sabab is used for means that are used to obtain something. Everything tangible and even intangible that becomes a means of obtaining something, resources, okay? And when it comes to tangible things like tools, transportation, and also intangible things like knowledge, skills, connections, friendships. So, cars are used, for example, when it comes to trying to travel from one place to another. Cars are means, asbab. Ladders also are a means to climb. Knowledge is also a means by which a person attains higher ranks. So, Dhul Qarnayn was blessed with all kinds of means that he needed. So what did he do? He used the means very well. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. So he followed a way. فَأَتْبَعَ from تَبَعٍ. تَبَعَ means to follow. أَتْبَعَ يُتْبِعُ. إِتْبَعَ gives two meanings. It means to follow or pursue someone or something. To make someone follow or pursue someone or something. So, فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. So he followed a way, meaning he proceeded. He went off conquering different lands. He went in a particular direction. And also, فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. He subordinated the means he had, he used the resources, and he put them to use. So again, أتبع يتبع. إتباع, it can give two meanings. One is lazim and the other is muta'addi. So lazim, fi'l lazim is the intransitive verb. And a verb is intransitive if the action does not pass on to an object. Right? So, if you take that meaning, فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا, so he followed a way. Dhul Qarnayn himself followed a direction. He went off conquering different lands. And the second way you can understand this is that أَتْبَعَ يُتْبِعُ. إِتْبَعَ is understood as fi'l muta'addi, which is transitive. And a verb is transitive if the action has an object without which the sense would not be complete. Okay? So that means that Dhul Qarnayn subordinated the means. Okay? He used the means, the resources, he put them to use. And sababa again in the meaning of road or path or resources. He used the resources that Allah had provided him with. He put them to use, and this was a sign of his intelligence. Allah grants many people the means for achieving different goals, but they don't use the means properly. Dhul Qarnayn did use the means properly. He benefited from what it is that Allah had provided him with. Think about it. Each person is given the same air to breathe, similar bodies, the same amount of time, but the results are so different. Many times people complain and they say, we don't have anything, we don't have enough. That's why we're not very productive. But the fact is that they do have a lot. And they may be saying this, oh, we don't have enough, because they're not grateful for what they do have. Or they're highly disorganized. They don't find the things that they have at the right time. Okay? Or sometimes they don't know how to make use of what they have. That's also an issue. Or sometimes we collect so many things, so many items, that we don't know what to use. If you shove everything that you love buying into a closet, and that closet becomes overcrowded, and as soon as you open it, everything topples down. All of these means that you do have, these resources, these tools, you're not going to be able to make use of them. It's as if you don't have anything, because everything you have is so disorganized. Some people use what it is that they have, and others let things use them. Okay? So you can use time to do what is productive, or you're just busy managing and storing commodities and things only. You're being used. And when you look at the Sahaba, one of the reasons why they were so successful, and many of them in a very short span of time, they would make the best use of their time and their skills because of their simplicity. They only had what they really did need, nothing extra. And so they could focus on more important matters in life. Because when we clutter our lives too much, we don't know how to use what we do have. So simplicity leads to productivity. So here Allah mentioned in the context of Dhul Qarnayn, حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَغْرِبَ الشَّمْسِ, until when he reached the setting of the sun. The term maghrib from ghayn ra ba, ghurub, is used for the setting of the sun. Maghrib is time or place of sunset, the west. Until when he reached the setting of the sun. So he followed a path, until he reached the furthest point that could be reached in the direction of the sun's setting, and that is towards the west. So, referring to the place where the sun sets, and that is in the sea, in a place of extreme west, where he did not find anything before him except a spring or a sea. The had, the limit of the land, where the land ended. Or, this could be referring to the time of sunset, Maghrib. وَجَدَ تَغْرُبُ فِي عَيْنٍ حَمِئَةٍ. He found it, meaning the sun, as if setting in a spring of dark mud. The term ayn, from ayn ya nun, here ayn means pool, where water is collected, or a spring of water. So as if it was setting in a spring or a sea. So scholars explain that it appeared to Dhul Qarnayn that the sun set in the spring or sea, just as a man standing on the shore sees the sun setting in the water. That's what it looks like. And things are explained in the Qur'an as we see them from the human perspective, so that it doesn't sound too technical. So the sun setting in a spring is described as seen from the perspective of the human eye. And the term hami'ah, from ha mim hamza or ha mim ya, ham'un, is used for clay or a mixture of mud and water. And it's used for when water stays on the mud and it stays stagnant for a long time. And so then that mud turns dark and smelly. In the context of the creation of Adam alayhi salam, one of the stages that is mentioned is hama'in masnoon. Mud that is wet and has a smell. Black mud. And the term hamiya, yahma, it means to be very hot. So hamiya means intensely hot. So aynin hamiya, this has been understood two ways. A spring that was muddy, dark, with loose, wet mud. In the literal sense, that's how it was. And so some say this is referring to the Black Sea. Wallahu a'lam. Or this description, hami'a, fi aynin hami'a, is taken figuratively. It looked dark and murky because of the time of sunset upon the fall of darkness. So the color of the water appeared dark. This is figurative. In another recitation, this term is recited hamiyah. From hamimiyah, hamiyah, intensely hot. So it was some type of hot water source that is being referred to. And some have said that this was somewhere in the region of China or Azerbaijan, but Allah knows best. وَوَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا قَوْمًا, and he found near it a people. Near it meaning the Ain, the spring. He found near it, indicating that he conquered that area. He found near it a people. And it is said that this was some kind of a disbelieving tribe of people. Some have said a tribe living on the shores of the Black Sea. Again, Allah knows best. Qulna, we said, meaning Allah said, Allah communicated to him. And so this communication of Allah is what is understood as ilham. Ilham. Because the majority view with regards to Dhul Qarnayn is that he is not a prophet. He was not a prophet. He was a righteous man. So Allah communicated to him in the form of ilham. Like he did with others who were non-prophets, like the mother of Musa alayhi salam. So this is a kind of an indication that Allah gives to non-prophets, because prophets receive wahi. So Allah communicated to Dhul Qarnayn, Ya Dhul Qarnayn, O Dhul Qarnayn, Imma an tu'addiba wa imma an tattakhidha fihim husna. Either you punish or else adopt among them a way of goodness. So he had complete choice with regards to this matter, to do whatever that he chose to do. This is a sabab. This is a means. And imma is understood several ways. One is in the meaning of maybe. Another way the term imma is understood is for tafsil, to explain. And the third way is takhyir, to give choice. And that's the usage that is applicable here, in the meaning of either or. So Allah said, O Dhul Qarnayn, either you punish these people for their kufr, because this was a disbelieving group. Either you punish them by killing them for their wrong practices, وَإِمَّا أَن تَتَّخِذَ فِيهِمْ حُسْنًا, or else adopt among them a way of goodness. Husna from ha, sin, nun. Husn is beauty, goodness, kindness. And this abstract noun is used, husnan, denoting benevolent treatment. Call them to iman, towards ahsan qawl, do da'wa ilallah. Call them towards irshad and ta'aleem. So Allah gave him the choice of punishing these people with qatl or treating them with kindness. When Rasulullah conquered Makkah, did he have the power to take retribution and punish the people? Yes, he did. He could have. But he chose what? Forgiveness. He chose to forgive them. So we learn from this that Dhul Qarnayn was very intelligent. sensible. He used the means that Allah provided for him, and when he conquered the lands, he didn't deal with the people the way other conquerors dealt with the people. He was not unjust. He was a just king. And what proves his justice and his adhering to the correct deen is the following statement. قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. He said, meaning Dhul Qarnayn said, choosing to do da'wah and choosing the second of the options, not the first. He said, as for one who wrongs, meaning doesn't believe in the oneness of Allah and commits shirk. And this meaning is clear from the next verse, which speaks about the opposite. As for one who wrongs, we will punish him. ثُمَّ يُرَدُّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ فَيُعَذِّبُهُ عَذَابًا نُكْرًا. Then he will be returned to his Lord, meaning on the day of judgment, and he will punish him, meaning Allah will punish him. His Lord will punish him with a terrible punishment. Because the punishment in the dunya does not purify the disbeliever. The disbeliever also has to face punishment in the hereafter. The term nukra from noon kafra. Nukr means unbearable, awful, unprecedented. He will punish him with a terrible punishment. He will see it as shadeed and severe. And this shows us the nature of Dhul Qarnayn. His justice has to do with punishing those who do dhulm. His aim was not to conquer lands, but to invite people towards Allah. وَأَمَّا مَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. On the other hand, as for one who believes and does righteousness, meaning believes in Allah, on my invitation, accepts the oneness of Allah, adheres to Tawheed, and does righteousness according to the directives of Allah, does ahsan amal, فَلَهُ جَزَاءً الْحُسْنَى. He will have the best reward. Husna meaning best and also most beautiful, which is Jannah. In both abodes, meaning the dunya and the hereafter. And al-Husna referring to Jannah. وَسَنَقُولُ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا يُسْرًا. And we will speak to him, meaning the one who believes and does good, from our command with ease, meaning our matter of dealing with him, or our hukam to him, our speech towards him. Meaning, we shall treat such people with leniency and with sympathy. We will facilitate for them. We shall command them with what will be easy for them to do. We will talk to them in an easy, gentle, good way. And an instant reward of doing good in this dunya is that you are treated well in this dunya. And with regards to the zalim, he promises two things. That he will punish him, number one, and number two, he will be returned to the hereafter and punished with a greater punishment. And with regards to the believer, he promises two things as well. That for him will be husna, al-husna, and that he will deal with him in a way that is easy and gentle. But notice the order. For the mushrik, he began with adab in the dunya, and then adab of the hereafter. As for the believer, he mentions the reward of Allah in the hereafter first, al-husna. And then that he will deal with him with ease in dunya. That's mentioned second. Why do you think? The reward of the hereafter always will be superior? Yeah, the believer is primarily focused on what? The reward of the hereafter. That's what matters more to the believer. The objective of the believer is to attain Jannah. And the attainment of Jannah is indeed something more superior and beloved than just being shown good treatment in this dunya for some time. That's good too. But what's far better is what? Jannah. And for the disbeliever, the punishment of the dunya is lesser than that of the hereafter. And therefore it is mentioned first. The believer desires Jannah more. And the kafir, the disbeliever, fears the punishment of the dunya more. Now, the reason why Dhul Qarnayn was conquering the lands was to spread the message of Tawheed and to establish justice. He was not conquering the different lands just to add those lands to his kingdom. This is very similar to how the Sahaba, the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after his death, left Medina and traveled to far off places to spread the message of Islam. For what purpose? To invite people towards Islam. And that is why we learn about the very famous statement of Rib'i ibn Amir. When the Muslims entered the area of Iran and they were asked, why have you come here? He said, we have come to liberate men from the slavery of men and instead to make them the slaves of Allah. We don't want wealth of this dunya. We've come to connect people to Allah. And this is why, if a person's goal in this dunya is to try and ensure that more and more people connect to their Creator through His words, the Qur'an for all, in every hand, in every heart. If that becomes your mission, you're not going to give up. Regardless of the responses you get from people. Some will accept, some will not accept. Your mission is what? To connect as many people as you can to their Creator. ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. Then, after this expedition, another one, he followed a way towards the Mashriq, the east. So, what quality of a believer do we learn of from this? A believer does not turn away from using the means that Allah has provided. But it's sad that many Muslims think that it is righteousness to not use means that Allah has granted in the name of simplicity. And what is simplicity according to them? Don't adopt articles of convenience to do good. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, the strong believer is more beloved to Allah than the weak believer. But there is goodness in both of them. احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله. Be eager for what benefits you. Seek help from Allah and do not be frustrated. Meaning, don't easily just give up. If something befalls you, then do not say, if only I had done something else. Rather say, Allah has decreed what He wills. Verily, the phrase if only opens the way for the work of shaitan. Because then you start overthinking. If only this had happened, if only that had happened. What's the point? You don't achieve anything. Imagine if a person who lives relatively far away from the masjid were to say that in the name of simplicity, I'm not going to use a car. I'm going to walk. This is going to be very counterproductive. You have a car, you live relatively far away, to come to the masjid, use the car. That's righteousness. So keep in mind that using means or articles of convenience is not against the deen. But at the same time, we should keep within the limits and not be extravagant. At the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a companion who constructed a house, and in it he placed a high window. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him why he made the window, he said for a cool breeze. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him to make his intention to listen to the adhan. Okay, so using asbab is not against deen. We need to correct our thinking and recognize the difference between israf and using means. Again, keep a check on the intention. Because banning everything is not part of our deen. Don't have this and don't have that. This is not, necessarily righteousness. Use the means that you do have with the correct intentions to draw closer to Allah in this dunya. Your aim is, of course, the hereafter. حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَطْلِعَ الشَّمْسِ, until when he came to the rising of the sun, meaning Dhul Qarnayn continued. From one expedition, he moves on to the next one, until when he came to the rising of the sun. And the term matli'a from Tala Ma'in, ism zarf, place or time of rising, referring to the rising of the sun, the extreme east. Or he continued till sunrise. So a place of extreme east where he couldn't proceed any further. Or maybe a mountainous range from behind which the sun was rising. وَجَدَهَا تَطْلُعُ عَلَى قَوْمٍ لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُم مِّن دُونِهَا سِتْرًا. He found it, meaning the sun rising, on a people for whom we had not made against it any shield. Again, the term تَطْلُعُ from طَالَ مَعِن. طُلُوع means rising or emerging. And sitra from sin ta'ra. Sitr is a curtain or a veil or a screen that hides and serves as a shield. So sitr is a shield that doesn't fully cover you. The term sutra is derived from the same root letters, which is something that you place before yourself when you are praying. Okay? So it doesn't completely cover you or hide you. Okay? It just is an indication that you're praying and you're praying in the direction of the Qibla. He found it, meaning the sun, rising on a people for whom we had not made against it, meaning against the sun, any shield. So this means that the people had no shelter against the sun. Okay? So apparently they were living in the open, without houses, without buildings. So the sun wouldn't actually go behind anything for them. They didn't have any high, tall structures. No proper sheltering. Some have said they didn't have any trees around them. Others have said actually they had no clothing. They were so uncivilized. They didn't have any clothing. Another interpretation is that this is referring to a place where the sun would actually not set. Or it would set for a very little time. So there was no shade. And there are certain parts of the world where it is like that. So in some areas in Europe also, there is no sunset for approximately from mid-April up until towards the end of August. Okay. Now, it has not been said, meaning it hasn't been mentioned with too much detail as to what exactly he did here, okay, towards the east. Rather, what this ayah shows is that his empire, the empire of Dhul Qarnayn, spread this far. His conquests were far-reaching. His traveling was expansive. كَذَلِكَ, thus, meaning thus it was. In other words, the situation was as has been stated. وَقَدْ أَحَطْنَا بِمَا لَدَيْهِ خُبْرًا. And we had encompassed all that he had in knowledge. أَحَطْنَا from حَوَوْطَ. إِحَاطَ means complete encompassing. Completely encompassing something. And we had encompassed all that he had, meaning of knowledge and conquests in knowledge. خُبْرًا from خَبَرًا. Same as خَبَر, which is knowledge or information that is obtained through experience. Khabar is to be aware of the howness of something. So Allah knew everything about him and his army and what he possessed in terms of tools and knowledge and resources and means. Nothing was hidden from Allah. So no matter what it is that a person achieves, Allah is fully aware of him. Other people might be in the dark, but Allah is fully aware. ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا, then he followed away. This is referring to a third expedition. And so we see here also a kind of a similarity between the case of Khadir and Dhul Qarnayn. Khadir also moved on from one task to the next one. And Khadir also always on the go, moving on. Then he followed a way. And this was a way towards the north or the south. Because first he went west, then he went east. Then the third time, what's happening? He followed a way, meaning towards the north or south. And this is the description highlighted most of all about Dhul Qarnayn. ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. This is what is reiterated about him. He made use of his resources and he kept going. He accomplished a lot. So this ruler was a very righteous ruler. He had a high level of iman. He was recognized by his noble character and justice. Despite this, he's struggling, he's working hard. He's embarking upon great expeditions from one side of the world to the next and the other side. And he reaches a third place. From the west to the east, and now he's going either north or south. He's not like, okay, now I've gone to the west, I've gone to the east, now I'm going to just kick back and relax, build myself a huge, massive mansion and just live in luxury. I'll take it easy now. Because the one who truly is focused upon the hereafter will continuously work. حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ بَيْنَ السَّدَّيْنِ, until when he reached between two mountains. He kept going. Until he reached between two mountains. So it was some kind of a pass, most probably between two mountains in the region of Central Asia. He reached the gap between two mountains. And the term Saddain, dual of Sadd, from Sin Dal Dal. And Sadd is used for a huge wall, which serves as a barrier. So, Saddain referring to huge mountain ranges. وَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمَا قَوْمًا, he found beside them, beside the two mountain ranges, a people. Not in between or behind, but beside. لَا يَكَادُونَ يَفْقَهُونَ قَوْلًا, who could hardly understand his speech. Yakadun from Kahf Waw Dal, kada yakadu. Kada yakadu, it means to be at the verge of doing something. These people who could hardly understand his speech. And so it has been said that these were people from the Far East, the Mongol race, or some have said Turks. Allah knows best. And perhaps they were a people completely cut off from the rest of the people of the earth. They were from an isolated place. Yet with Dhul Qarnayn's determination, he managed to communicate with them. Because remember, Allah had blessed him with many resources. And he availed of them. So perhaps he had some kind of language experts. He could communicate with them through some means. قالوا, they said, meaning the people that he found beside the mountain. They said, Ya Dhul Qarnayn, O Dhul Qarnayn. So they addressed him by his laqab, his title, to honor him. Inna Ya'juj wa Ma'juj mufsiduna fil ard. Indeed, Ya'juj and Ma'juj are great corrupters in the land. Keep in mind, Ya'juj and Ma'juj. These are names of two powerful and invading qaba'il, tribes of human beings, of Banu Adam. One tribe is called Ya'juj, the other called Ma'juj. These are human beings, it's not a virus. Okay? So these people that were found beside the mountain ranges said, O Dhul Qarnayn, indeed Ya'juj and Ma'juj are great corrupters in the land who carry out raids whenever they come. So the people mentioned their problem and they're asking for what? A solution. They describe Ya'juj and Ma'juj as mufsiduna fil ard, corrupters on the land. فَهَلْ نَجْعَلُ لَكَ خَرْجًا عَلَىٰ أَن تَجْعَلَ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَهُمْ سَدًّا. So may we assign for you an expenditure, meaning some kind of a tax that you might make between us and them, a barrier, an obstruction, so they cannot harm us anymore. The term kharjan from kha ra jim, kharj means maintenance tax or expenditure. And the reason why they offered the kharaj is because they did not want their request to be turned down. This is how bothered they were by the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. We learn that Rasulullah, he said on the day of resurrection, Allah will say, "O Adam," and Adam will reply, "Labbaik Rabbana wa sa'daik." I respond to your call, I am obedient to you, and all the good is in your hands. And then there will be a loud call saying, Allah orders you to take from among your offspring a mission for the hellfire. So Adam alayhi salam will say, "Oh Lord, who are the mission for the hellfire?" So Allah will say, out of each 1,000, take out 999. At that time, every pregnant female shall drop her load, and a child will have gray hair. And as we learn in Surah Al-Hajj, وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى وَمَا هُمْ بِسُكَارَى وَلَكِنَّ عَذَابَ اللَّهِ شَدِيدٌ. And you shall see mankind as in a drunken state, yet not drunk, but severe will be the torment of Allah. When Rasulullah mentioned this, the people were so distressed that their faces changed in terms of complexion. Whereupon Rasulullah said, "From Ya'juj and Ma'juj, 999 will be taken out, and one from you." You Muslims, compared to the large number of other people, will be like a black hair on the side of a white ox, or a white hair on the side of a black ox. And I hope that you will be 1/4 of the people of paradise. On that, the Sahaba, they said, Allahu Akbar. Then he said, I hope you will be 1/3 of the people of paradise. Again, they said, Allahu Akbar. Then he said, I hope that you will be 1/2 of the people of paradise. As your example in comparison to the other people, meaning you Muslims compared to non-Muslims, is like that of a white hair on the skin of a black ox, or a round hairless spot on the foreleg of a donkey. So this teaches us that Ya'juj and Ma'juj are human beings. Okay. قَالَ مَا مَكَّنِّي فِيهِ رَبِّي خَيْرٌ. He said, meaning Dhul Qarnayn said, with kindness, righteousness, and good intentions, that in which my Lord has established me of resources and wealth is better than what you offer, the tax that you're trying to offer to me. I have no need for it. I don't need your tax money. This is just like Sulaiman alayhi salam said, acknowledging the favor of Allah, that what I have is sufficient, I don't need what you offer. As we learn in Surah An-Naml verse 36. So when they came to Sulaiman, he said, do you provide me with wealth? This is the people of Saba. When the queen of Saba decided to submit, right? He said, do you provide me with wealth? And of course, you also sent to him many gifts. He said, what Allah has given me is better than what He has given you. Rather, it is you who rejoice in your gift. So what do we learn from this? Dhul Qarnayn did not conquer lands to amass wealth. He wanted to help people. This is the difference between a believer who is in power and the one who does not believe, who gets power. فَأَعِينُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ. But assist me, help me with strength. And the term فَأَعِينُونِي from Ain, Waw, Noon, Aun is a general term used for help. He said, assist me with strength in that which I will demand from you. So he was himself working, and he also assigned others to work. Quwwa here means workforce, manpower, labor. Quwwa badaniyya, not maliyya, not through wealth. أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَدْمًا. I will make between you and them meaning Ya'juj and Ma'juj, a dam. So they asked for some kind of a sadd, right? Some kind of a barrier. Because they said, فَهَلْ نَجْعَلُ لَكَ خَرْجًا عَلَىٰ أَن تَجْعَلَ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَهُمْ سَدًّا. And he says to them that I will create what? Radama. Right? Now, the term radama from ra dal mim. Radam is such a sad, all of whose holes and gaps are sealed or filled in. It's more fortified. It's a stronger blockade. The term radima, the verb radima, means to seal holes, to plug them with rocks. So radam is a fortified barrier, stronger than sad. They asked for sad, he says, I'll create for you radam, which means what? He's working at the level of ihsan. Atuni zubar al-hadid, he says to them, bring me sheets of iron. The term zubar from zai ba ra, plural of zubrah, which is used for a big piece of iron, a sheet of iron. He's not asking for bricks. Bring me sheets of iron and put them between the two mountain passes or the mountain ranges, in the pass between the mountains. Now just imagine how much iron must have been required for this task. So he said, bring large pieces of iron to be used in the construction and then place these sheets between the two mountain ranges. حَتَّى إِذَا سَاوَى بَيْنَ الصَّدَفَيْنِ, until when he had leveled them, he meaning Dhul Qarnayn had leveled them, equalized them. Sawa from sin wawya. حَتَّى إِذَا سَاوَى بَيْنَ الصَّدَفَيْنِ, until when he had leveled them between the two mountain walls. The term صَدَفَيْن from صَد dal fa, dual of صَدَف. The plural is أصدف. The term sadaf actually can be used for, it's used for an oyster, because it's also not straight, flat, it's curved or bent. Okay, sadaf is also used for the bend in the legs of the camels also. So this is referring to the two sides of the two mountain ranges, sadafain. So he filled the gap between the mountains. He layered the sheets, starting at the bottom, until he reached the tops of the mountains, filling the width and the height of the gap, until the wall and the peak of the mountains became equal. قَالَ انْفُخُوا, he said, blow with bellows. And unfukhu from nun fa kha, nafakha means to blow or inflate. He said, blow with bellows to burn the iron sheets that were placed between the mountains. حَتَّى إِذَا جَعَلَهُ نَارًا, until when he had made it, being the wall of iron, like fire. He lit a fire until the whole thing was burning hot. He had the technology to do this somehow. قَالَ آتُونِي أُفْرِغْ عَلَيْهِ قِطْرًا, he said, bring me that I may pour over it molten copper. Meaning, bring me the molten copper that I may pour over it, the wall of iron, molten copper. And the term أفرغ from fa ra ghain, faragh means to be empty, and afragha means to pour so that the container becomes empty. So he said, bring me that I may pour, in order to make the wall firm, bring me that I may pour over it, it referring to the wall of iron, molten copper. So what is being poured on top of the iron? Molten copper. Qitra from Qaf ta ra, and qitr is molten copper. And so he poured the molten copper over the hot iron, making a solid structure. Now normally walls are built out of bricks and cement. Even then they're not very strong. But here, instead of using bricks, iron sheets were used. And then molten copper was poured over it. So what was put together was actually a very, very solid structure. فَمَا اسْطَاعُوا أَن يَظْهَرُوهُ, so Ya'juj and Ma'juj were unable to pass over it. وَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا لَهُ نَقَبًا, nor were they able to effect in it, meaning the wall, any penetration. The term يَظْهَرُوهُ from ظَهَرَ means to become visible, and also it means to overcome something. فَمَا اسْطَاعُوا أَن يَظْهَرُوهُ, so they, the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, were unable to pass over it, ascend it, nor were they able to effect in it, meaning the wall, any penetration. Naqaba. Naqaba from nun qaf ba, And naqaba is used for piercing or digging or excavating land. They couldn't make a hole into it because of its thickness and toughness. So Allah saved through this the people of that time and also generations after them. And this act is included within al-Baqiyat al-Salihat in the case of Dhul Qarnayn, enduring good deeds. Now, achieving such a feat, making such a barrier was not something easy, but Dhul Qarnayn did it. And this shows us the amount of knowledge he must have really had. But despite this, what does he say? قَالَ هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. He said, this is a mercy from my Lord. This wall, this construction, this ability to put together this kind of a structure, this is a mercy from my Lord. Meaning from His mercy. This understanding, this technology, this ability, this opportunity. This is a manifestation of Allah's mercy. A blessing for the people because it's going to prevent Ya'juj and Ma'juj from causing corruption. This is a mercy from my Lord. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا. But when the promise of my Lord comes, He will make it level. Which promise? The promise of their coming forth. The coming forth of Ya'juj and Ma'juj before the Day of Judgment. As one of the signs of the coming of the Day of Judgment. When the promise of my Lord comes, He will make it, meaning this radam, level. Dakka, from dal kaf kaf. Dak has two meanings. One is to crush something, and the second is to flatten something. And dakka means to demolish or break something, such that it's leveled to the ground, powdered. So near the Day of Judgment, this strong barrier, radam, which the corrupt Ya'juj and Ma'juj cannot climb over, nor can they penetrate, will be flattened. So they will come forth. وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا. And ever is the promise of my Lord true. Which promise? Of the khuruj, the coming out of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, the opening of the radam. Or iqamatu sa'ah, the establishment of the Day of Judgment. Or everything else that Allah has promised. وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا. And ever is the promise of my Lord true. It will definitely happen. Now what do we learn from this? We learn that the righteous slaves of Allah do not attribute their accomplishments to themselves. They attribute their accomplishments to what? Allah's rahmah, His fadl. Think about also Sulaiman alayhi salam, when he was able to hear the ant speaking. We learn in Surah An-Naml verses 18 and 19. Until when they came upon the valley of the ants, an ant said, O ants, enter your dwellings, that you not be crushed by Sulaiman and his soldiers, while they perceive not. So Sulaiman alayhi salam smiled. فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا. Sulaiman alayhi salam smiled, amused at her speech. And then he said what? رَبِّ أَوْزِعْنِي أَنْ أَشْكُرَ نِعْمَتَكَ الَّتِي أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيَّ وَعَلَى وَالِدَيَّ وَأَنْ أَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا تَرْضَاهُ وَأَدْخِلْنِي بِرَحْمَتِكَ فِي عِبَادِكَ الصَّالِحِينَ. My Lord, enable me to be grateful for your favor, which you have bestowed upon me and upon my parents, and to do righteousness of which you approve. And admit me by your mercy into the ranks of your righteous servants. Also, keep in mind, Dhul Qarnayn did not manipulate the different people that he interacted with. And this can only happen if one remains akhirah oriented. He brought benefit to the people. He was able to communicate effectively with them. He helped people establish themselves. And also in the context of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they will eventually be able to cross this barrier. And their population will be 999 times more than the population of other human beings. And when they will come out, they will create a lot of fasad. As we learn in Surah Al-Anbiya also, verses 96 and 97. حَتَّى إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ. Until when the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, the dam of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj has been opened, and they from every elevation descend. And when the true promise has approached, then suddenly the eyes of those who disbelieve will be staring in horror, while they say, "Oh, woe to us! We had been unmindful of this. Rather, we were wrongdoers." Okay, let's listen to the recitation of these verses.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرا إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا فأتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا قال ما مكني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما آتوني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرا فما استطاعوا أن يظهروه وما استطاعوا له نقبا قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكاء وكان وعد ربي حقا.
It was narrated from Abu Hurairah that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, the Ya'juj and Ma'juj are digging every day, meaning through this barrier, this radam, until they can almost see sunlight coming through. Then the one who is in charge of them says, go back, we will dig again tomorrow. Then Allah restores the barrier and makes it stronger than it was. This will continue until the appointed time. When Allah wishes to send them against the people, they will dig until they can almost see sunlight. Then the one who is in charge of them will say, go back, we will dig again tomorrow, insha'Allah. This time he will say, insha'Allah. So when they come back the next day, they will find it as they left it, without being restored. So they will dig their way out and emerge to attack the people. They will dry up water by drinking it because of their great numbers. And the people will seek to protect themselves from them in their fortresses. They will fire their arrows into the sky and the arrows will come back down covered in blood as he tests for them. And they will say, we have defeated the people of the earth and have gained the upper hand over the people of the heavens, meaning the inhabitants of the heavens, referring to angels. Then Allah will send worms on the napes of their necks, which will kill them. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, by the one in whose hand is my soul, the beasts of the earth will grow fat from their flesh. Then also we learn that Zainab bint Jahash narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once came to her in a state of fear and said, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, waylun lil Arab. Woe to the Arabs from the evil that has approached them. Today a hole has been opened in the barrier of Ya'juj and Ma'juj like this, and he made a circle with his index finger and the thumb. Zainab bint Jahash, she said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will we be destroyed even though there will be righteous people amongst us? He said, yes, if evil increases. So when will they appear? They will come near the end of time, after the killing of Dajjal. And there will be many, many, many of them. Then also, we learn, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he narrates, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ya'juj and Ma'juj will be set free and they will emerge as Allah describes, وَهُم مِّن كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ. They will spread throughout the earth and the Muslims will flee from them until the remainder of the Muslims are in their cities and fortresses, taking their flocks with them. They will pass by a river and drink from it until they leave nothing behind. And the last of them will follow in their footsteps, and one of them will say, there was once water in this place. They will prevail over the earth. Then their leader will say, these are the people of the earth, the inhabitants of the earth, and we have finished them off because they're not going to be aware of the Muslims that are hiding. Now let us fight the people of the heavens, meaning the angels. Then one of them will throw his spear towards the sky and it will come back down smeared with blood. And they will say, we have killed the people of the heavens also. While they are like that, Allah will send a worm like the worm that is found in the noses of sheep, which will penetrate their necks and they will die like locusts, one on top of another. In the morning, the Muslims will not hear any sound from them. And they will say, who will sell his soul for the sake of Allah and see what they're doing? So a man will go down, having prepared himself to be killed by them. And he will find them dead. So he will call out to the other believers, be of good cheer, for your enemy is dead. Then the people will come out and let their flocks loose. But they will not have anything to graze on except their flesh, meaning the flesh of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And they will become very fat, as if they were grazing on the best vegetation they ever found. Now, think about how much this world still is going to change. How many things in this dunya still are going to change? Because many times people talk about how the world has changed so much. Yes, it has. But it still has to change a lot more. All of these things still have to happen. The emerging of the Ya'juj, Ma'juj, them causing a lot of corruption, finishing off the water, and then them dying. So much is still to happen. When? We don't know. How? Meaning the exact preciseness of all of this, we don't know. But because this is of the matters of the unseen, we believe in it as it is. The reflection question for this lesson is, Dhul Qarnayn used the means that Allah provided for him. Make a list of those means that Allah has put at your disposal. Are you using them all? Okay, there's another lengthier narration pertaining to Dajjal and also Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Would you like to hear? Okay. Nawas ibn Sam'an, he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned Dajjal one morning as something despised, but also alarming, until we thought that he was in the stand of date palm trees, meaning we thought he was just here. Who was? Dajjal. When we came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the evening, he saw the fear in us and said, what is the matter with you? We said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you mentioned Dajjal this morning and you spoke of him as something despised but also alarming until we thought that he was in the stand of date palm trees. He said, there are things that I fear more for you than Dajjal. If he appears while I am among you, I will contend with him on your behalf. And if he appears when I am not among you, then each man must fend for himself. And Allah will take care of every Muslim on my behalf. Dajjal will be a young man with curly hair and an eye that is protruding. I liken him to Abdul Uzza ibn Qatan. Whoever among you sees him, let him recite the first verses of Surah al-Kahf over him. He will emerge from Khalla, between Sham and Iraq, and will wreak havoc right and left. O slaves of Allah, remain steadfast. We said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how long will he stay on earth? He said 40 days. 1 day like a year, 1 day like a month, 1 day like a week, and the rest of his days like your days. We said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on that day, which is like a year, will the prayers of 1 day suffice us? He said, make an estimate of time and then observe prayer. We said, how fast will he move through the earth? He said, like a rain cloud driven by the wind. He said, he will come to some people and call them, and they will respond and believe in him. Then he will command the sky to rain, and it will rain. And he will command the earth to produce vegetation, and it will do so. And their flocks will come back in the evening with their humps taller, their udders fuller, and their flanks fatter than they have been before. Then he will come to some other people and call them, and they will reject him. So he will turn away from them, and they will suffer drought and be left with nothing. Then he will pass through the wasteland and will say, bring forth your treasures. Then go away, and its treasures will follow him like a swarm of bees. Then he will call a man brimming with youth, and will strike him with a sword and cut him into two. He will put the two pieces as far apart as the distance between an archer and his target. Then he will call him, and he will come with his face shining, laughing. While they are like that, Allah will send Isa ibn Maryam, who will come down at the white minaret in the east of Damascus, wearing 2 garments, dyed, resting his hands on the wings of 2 angels. When he lowers his head, beads of perspiration will fall from it. Every disbeliever who smells the fragrance of his breath will die, and his breath will reach as far as his eye can see. Then he will set out and catch up with Dajjal at the gate of Lud and will kill him. Then the Prophet of Allah, Isa, will come to some people whom Allah has protected, and he will wipe their faces and tell them of their status in Jannah. While they are like that, Allah will reveal to him, O Isa, I have brought forth some of my slaves whom no one will be able to kill. So take my slaves to Tur, a mountain, in safety. Then Ya'juj and Ma'juj will emerge. And they will, as Allah describes, min kulli hadabi yansilun, swoop down from every mound. The first of them will pass by a lake, Tabariya, and drink from it. Then the last of them will pass by it and will say, there was water here once. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam continued, and he mentioned the Prophet of Allah, Isa, and his companions will be besieged there until the head of an ox would be dearer to any one of them than 100 dinar are to any one of you today. Then Isa and his companions will supplicate, they will make dua. Then Allah will send a worm in the necks of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and the next morning they will all die as one. All of them will die at the same time. And then Isa alayhi salam and his companions will come down, And they will not find even the space of a handspan that is free of their stench and blood, meaning of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. They will pray to Allah and He will send birds with necks like the necks of camels, which will pick them up, meaning the bodies of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and throw them wherever Allah wills. Then Allah will send rain which will not leave any house of clay or hair, and it will wash the earth until it leaves it like a mirror or smooth rock. Then it will be said to the earth, bring forth your fruits and bring back your blessing. On that day, a group of people will eat from a single pomegranate, and it will suffice them. And they will seek shelter beneath its skin. Imagine how big this will be. Allah will bless a camel so that it will be sufficient for a large number of people, and a cow will be sufficient for a whole tribe, and a sheep will be sufficient for a whole clan. While they are like that, Allah will send a pleasant wind, which will seize them beneath their armpits, this is the believers, and will take the soul of every believer. All the believers will die, leaving the rest of the people, meaning the worst of the people, fornicating like donkeys, and upon them will come the hour. Only the worst of the people will remain. And then the day of judgment will be established. Okay, so inshallah we will end here for now. Tomorrow inshallah we will resume with the next lesson. Okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.